Morning.
It is 7 a.m., March 28, 2018, and we'll call this meeting of the Fergus Falls City Council Committee of the Whole to order. Roll call, please.
Here. 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 Yeah, here.
First item on the agenda is the MSAS system mileage, Mr. Brian Navarro.
Yes, thank you and good morning, Your Honor, and members of the committee. This memo for you is in regards to the city's municipal state aid street system. Just want to give you a few bullet point backgrounds in regards to the system. 20% of the city's local mileage street system can be designated on the municipal state aid street system. This can consist of trunk highway turnback to the city as well as additional system mileage. Funding for this program is through the Highway User Tax Fund, which consists of fuel tax, motor vehicle sales tax, license fees such as that. 95% of the Highway User Tax Distribution Fund is allocated to MnDOT at 62%, which consists of your trunk highway system, counties such as County State Aid at 29%, and cities over 5,000 population is approximately 9% of the funding, and that's what the threshold limit is for a municipal state aid to receive MSA street funds. The city share is based on population at 50% and construction needs at 50%. In 2018, Fergus Falls allotment is $1,074,662. Of this is reserved for construction and maintenance funds. Construction consists of 75% and 25% is with your main unallocated maintenance funds that the city receives. Every year, when I mention the 20% designation, I have to do a certification of mileage. We have an accrual of a little bit of balance that we can designate onto our MSA street funds, and this is the intent of this memo here right now. System revisions are made by City Council resolution, which is then submitted to MnDOT for final approval by the Commissioner's order. So at this time, being we have I'm requesting a resolution for the City Council to designate Burlington Avenue, generally from Randolph Avenue to Summit, and Stanton Avenue from Broadway Avenue to Vine Street. Adding these two segments will be added to our state aid system contingent on the Commissioner's order. So at this time, I'm looking for a resolution to adopt this proposal.
Would someone move that, to bring that to the council? Thank you, Jim.
I'll second, Your Honor.
Thank you, Justin. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. I believe we can put that on the consent agenda.
What was the first street? I didn't get it all written down.
Oh, it's there right on in your packet.
I don't have,
too.
it's in my packet? Okay. I didn't have
Yeah,
it.
there's
I don't
the
have
first
it.
street was Burlington, Randolph to Summit.
Okay, that's all I want to know. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Brian. Brian, again, on Public Improvement 5318 Fur Avenue intersection study.
Yes, thank you. This just recently came up from Otter Tail County. Otter Tail County engineers had procured a professional services agreement from SRF to conduct a feasibility study for the intersections on Fur Avenue located at Freiburg and Union. The county has proposed a cost share split to complete the study. The split was derived based on existing future county and city jurisdictions. These are proposed to be road swaps in the near future. But based on this, the total amount for SRF's proposal is $37,740. The city's proposed share is $15,725, and Otter Tail County's proposed share is $22,015. I'm recommending that the City Council accept the proposal from Otter Tail County in the amount of $15,725. This is proposed to be paid through future projects and municipal state aid allocations. I'm also requesting City Council initiate Public Improvement 5318, and I'd just like to note that this came rather recent and everything, so it's just a feasibility study. So we're just going to look at intent of a feasibility study is to look at the potential of a roundabout or what other type of improvements could be made at these intersections at this time. The time when this could be done, developed, and everything is undetermined at this time.
Any questions for Brian? If not, do we have a motion to bring this to the council on Monday night?
Make the motion.
Thank you, Brent.
Second.
Thanks, Tom. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is an update on the traffic and pedestrian studies surrounding Kennedy Secondary School. We'll call on our Chief of Public Safety, Kyle Bergen.
Thank you, Your Honor. I provided a couple packets this morning before the discussion, and a lot of what Brian had just talked about and some of these other street projects, we're trying to incorporate some of those projects also into the traffic study around Kennedy to make it a safer place for everyone. We've had quite a bit of discussion with SRF on the traffic study. We've also had, obviously, quite a bit of discussion with the school district. I just gave you a very brief snapshot of some of the materials we have. We obviously have more in-depth information as far as traffic counts, turning movements, and there's just a lot of data provided in the study. On the very first page of the handout that I provided to you, I just want to draw attention to a couple areas. When we started this study, I believe the discussion was had maybe back this fall, shortly after school started, in the area noted as number 7, congestion queuing during drop-off for morning and afternoon pickup in Lot 5. That was one of the main areas of concern for us as the city. Just that traffic has been backing up on Freiburg Avenue. It's not denoted in this aerial photo, but there's also a pedestrian crossing on the north edge of that parking lot entrance going across Freiburg Avenue. Here again, we're at 3 lanes of traffic. You have a lane going each direction, and you have a center turn lane. Just the amount of congestion was making it, I think, a safety risk for the pedestrians crossing there. Another area of concern is noted down at number 1 and 3, the Randolph-Freiburg intersection. There seems to be a little bit of congestion or backup on Randolph Avenue as vehicles try to make a left turn onto Freiburg. The other thing that was noted in both directions is vehicles making a quick right off of Randolph onto Freiburg and then a quick left onto Cecil, and then vice versa. In the morning they would come up Cecil, make a quick right onto Freiburg, and then want to take a left onto Randolph. And again, it's just a very, the street isn't aligned. That's really the biggest issue there, and just the volume of traffic trying to get up Randolph. 2, 4, and 5 along Randolph Avenue. You know, number 4 specifically about the parking along Randolph Avenue. I think that's an issue that can easily be addressed with just some signage change. We're okay with parents picking up at that location. I think it's signed currently no parking at 4 o'clock. Some of these things I think are pretty easy fixes to the problem. But I wanted to really focus on those 2 areas. As you go to the second page, you can see in figure 7 again, one of the recommendations, and it's one that I truly support, is moving the entrance of parking lot 5 further north up Freiburg Avenue and alleviating that congestion at that crossing. And it allows for more stacking or queuing of cars in the parking lot as opposed out into the street. We'd also look at the addition of a designated right turn lane and get rid of parking as you approach that entrance. The other suggestion, as you look at number 1, is the possible closure of Cecil Avenue at Freiburg to avoid those quick right and left turn movements. You know, that's something that we've talked about, is maybe doing that as a temporary closure I always like to see how that's going to affect, you know, you solve a problem, but you create, you know, there's a potential of creating a new problem elsewhere. So, and again, there's just some other options listed on there. The others were, at least from my perspective, and I think Brian would probably echo that, we're not as supportive of. And then just going to the third page, again with some options, potential options of what to do at that Randolph-Freiburg intersection. The top one was, they called that a elongated roundabout or a modified roundabout. We didn't really care for that. It seemed very confusing. The second one was realigning that intersection. And the third one was the closure of Cecil Avenue. You know, again, just from my perspective, you know, we want to do the things that we can do rather quickly to kind of alleviate some of the safety concerns around the school. The realigning of the intersections and adding of a traffic signal, or even making that intersection a roundabout, you know, you're talking $500,000 or more. It's, you know, pretty obvious to us that that's not something that's readily feasible. You know, the temporary closure of Cecil Avenue, that is not a high cost fix. And then the realignment of that parking lot, you know, again, a ballpark estimate was in that area of $30,000 to me, something that's far more doable. Again, that's something that we have to work on with the school district, as it, you know, a portion of that is on their property. So the biggest thing for today, we're not looking for any action. I just kind of wanted to bring you up to speed on some of the discussions that we've been having with the school district, some of the options that we're looking at, and also so that you're aware, one of the next phases in this plan is to put out a survey to the public regarding some of these issues. And some of the information you have there is preliminary from the survey. I think we'll go back with SRF and make some minor modifications, but we obviously want to get the public's input on some of these changes. The school district, again, I can't say enough good things about their willingness to partner and getting that survey out to the parents of kids that are using the school, as well as just other, and it's not, again, it's not just motorists, it's also pedestrians, bicyclists. We just want to make this area as safe as we possibly can, and obviously there's been some changes up there in the last 7 or 8 years with the addition to the school. It's something that's going to be there probably another 50+ years. So I think both we as the city and the school district understand that we have to do or make some changes to make it safer for everybody. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, and I guess if you have any questions, you know, I can certainly answer them.
Thanks, Kyle. Justin?
I just got one, Your Honor. Thank you. This might have been discussed, and if so, I just was just curious. So I drive by this every day going to work, and that the lot to the south of Lot 5, you know, I know it's predominantly faculty, and it might have been discussed. It looks from a stacking standpoint, as you referred in Lot 5. Was it ever discussed or thought about of having you know, the first turn in being where the flow of traffic would come in? But and I just know that parking dock is on that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they come in the morning and that would be an issue, or if you guys talked about that.
Yes, we actually did, excuse me, discuss that. We actually came out with a couple of plans, making one entrance in and the other end an exit only. And that was a main issue with the school district, is their loading dock is right in the middle of that, as well as their trash compactor and some other things. So from an operational standpoint, it didn't work for them. Initially, when we sat down, that was kind of our idea as well. And that's where the that option, or that item 7 came from, that modified entrance further to the north. Again, it kind of allows the same thing, but it gave the school district that flexibility to keep their loading dock where it was. And
It looks like you'd probably be able to stack just as many cars, but you'd probably have a lot less congestion on that north lot. But I just didn't know when how early those delivery trucks come, if they come in the
Yeah.
morning or.
And you bring up another good point that I failed to mention too is, when we talk about the issues, for the most part, during the morning, you have anywhere a half hour, maybe even up to a 45-minute window where we have people dropping off. The morning is not so much of an issue as it is pickup, because at the end of the school day, everyone is leaving at one time and they're there at one time. So we don't see as much congestion in the morning during drop-off, just because we do have a larger window. And it's kind of reflected too, even with some of the vehicle counts. It's, some of these intersections within an hour, you're getting almost 900 cars, through there. So it's definitely high volume. Yeah, I don't know if there's any other.
Any other questions, Scott?
I just want to say, I agree with the Cecil thing, Kyle, closing it off. Tom and I live there. Tom said he likes to use that road, but in the mornings and at night, if I'm coming home, I live right over there. It's just, if you got rid of that road, it would make it so much smoother. And of course, the north parking lot with that northeast exit would be that intersection right there with Baird, and that parking lot in the morning and at night is just awful.
Sure.
And especially when there's concerts and stuff too, it's terrible too. So
And
I agree with that.
And I like I said, I think it's worth looking at that closure, like I said, even if it is on a temporary basis, just to see how it affects traffic flow. And again, I think the school district is on the same page. I think ideally we would like to see those intersections aligned or a roundabout in that area, but we know that that's something that's very long-term and not anything that's going to happen in the near future. But in the interim, I think that these are fairly low-cost alternatives that could potentially increase the safety around the school.
Are you thinking potentially in September?
Brian's the building guy.
We would,
Yeah,
depends on the appetite.
sure.
We're trying to, Kyle mentioned deliverable be a tiered aspect based on cost too, because there's a few different little measures too, as far as implementation and everything, so that's still working on that right now.
Sure.
But
Could you implement that closure of Cecil, for the last 2 months of school? Is that something that could happen? So you can try it out, so you kind of got some information going into the summer?
Yeah, the one concern, the one thing we'd look at is, they're gonna go one or two ways out of there to Baird, or farther, they're going to west and then they'll go back to Cleveland. I have issues with the turning radius, we might have to do some improvements there to help buses with that longer wheelbase. That would probably be a component of, if you close Cecil, you'll have to do some other intersection improvements. Not a big deal, we do widening such as that, but that's something we would have to vet and take a look at.
Right, I just think it'd be a good idea to get some good information.
Yeah, we.
Sooner than better.
Yep.
So-
And I think too, when I say that, some of these projects are sooner than later, even if we got them implemented within the next 2 years, to me, that's relatively quick, as opposed to, when we talk about a intersection realignment or a roundabout, that could be 20 years out. And I kind of agree with Brian, is that, you make a change here, and it's not as simple as just, making that one change. You have to look at how it's going to affect other places, and it's far more challenging of a project than I think most people
Right.
imagine. And a lot of it is, we don't have a grid street system in this area. You have streets that are kind of meandering through. You don't have good arterial routes or alternate routes. So it really does pose a challenge.
Thank you, Chief. Next item on the agenda is the 2018 lifeguard agreement. I'll call on our next director, Steve Plaza.
Good morning. Before you is our lifeguard agreement that we do with the YMCA every year. It starts from June 11th, Monday, June 11th, and goes through Sunday, August 19th, total of 70 days. The lifeguards will be out on the beach between, from 1:30 to 5:30, weather permitting. It's basically the same contract we had last year for $22,500. We entered this agreement to provide lifeguards out at Pebble Lake Beach. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Steve? If not, is there a motion to bring this to the council? Thank you, Jim. Scott, thank you. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you,
Thank
Steve. Item number 5 is a discussion on Pebble Lake Golf Course. I'll call on Guy Taylor.
I think you have the old agenda. We're going to do 2 items here. One is lawnmowers for the park department, and one is golf course equipment.
Got it.
So to begin with, just seeking the committee's recommendation to the council to authorize 2 lawnmowers to be surplus, authorizing their disposal, and then also authorizing purchase of 2 Toro mowers along with that surplusing. The 2 mowers that we will surplus are older units. One's 14 years old, one's 10 years old, both with over 3,000 hours on them. And beyond the hours and the age of them, they've got a hydrostatic drive on them that has been very problematic, and we've put a lot of money into those in the last few years. So we're seeking to go with a different brand of mower this time, going with the Toro, and seeing if we can alleviate those costs of repairs to those hydrostats. So the purchase price for the 2 mowers and a sweeper for one of the mowers is $141,514, coming from the annual 2018 equipment fund budget. This is an amount that is reduced significantly by purchasing through the National Intergovernment Purchasing Alliance. The discount we're receiving through that is $43,700. So it's very significant, that discount. And the discount is even greater when we factor in the next item that Lance from the golf course is going to be talking about, a sprayer. That sprayer included on this one purchase, one invoice, brings our discount up another $7,500. So it's significant. So seeking authorization again to surplus the 2 mowers and purchase of 2 new Toro units.
I'll offer that. Thank you, Jim.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Brent. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you, Guy.
Yeah, thank you. And to talk about the golf course equipment is Lance Walhutney, the course superintendent.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Lance Walletney, the superintendent at Pebble Lake. The piece of equipment that we are going to hopefully purchase is the Toro 5800. It's a sprayer. The sprayer is the most important piece of equipment on the golf course, and right now we have a sprayer. It is 28 years old. Actually, it's mounted on a piece that is 28 years old. It is 24 years old. It has 9,469 hours on it, which is actually close to double the expected lifetime hours on it. We have a great mechanic that has helped with that, keeping that alive that long. We hope with this new mower that we could also achieve that longevity, or this new sprayer that also achieve that same longevity. That being said, with this new sprayer, it comes equipped with GPS, and they say that it will save 14% on average of your annual chemical fertilizer usage. That would save us $4,200 a year. If we conservatively said 10%, $3,000 a year we could save over the lifespan if it lasted the same as what our current sprayer did. it would save us $72,000 over that lifespan. Couple things that with that GPS, it will be better and more precise for our budgeting. It'll be better for the environment, as we will use less chemical and fertilizer. And we will see better spray consistency, which will be a better product out at the golf course. So what I'm seeking is approval to purchase that piece. That piece is $71,000, which is under the same contract that Guy had stated. That is that's a $30,000 savings over the MSRP, and it will not be an additional cost to the city. It's under the golf course line item. Is the reason I'm coming to you is because we will have to sign a contract with Toro, because we will be purchasing it as a contract, and that will be over 5 years, and it'll be $15,000, $784.72 a year. And that all comes under the current line item for the golf course.
Thank you, Lance. Any
Any
questions of Lance?
I just got, Bill, you want to clarify that line item and how that works?
Sure. So within our general fund budget, under the Park and Rec area, we have golf course area. And if you'll recall, annually we budget about $40,500. That's been used for equipment at the golf course. Also some building improvements out there have been done through that as well. Currently, out of that, about $20,500 of it is being used to make some annual payments on two pieces of equipment. The one is a Toro large area rotary mower, and the last payment for that is in 2018 now for $11,351. And we're also making payments on a John Deere precision cut fairway mower, and that is in the second year payments on that for $8,974. So this $15,000 that he's talking about, this annual payment, would come under that same budget area. We are carrying forward some dollars from 2017 that were unspent. So that brings, netting out to leaving about $11,150 after those three payments would be made with that carryover. So it does fit within that general fund city golf course budget area. So it would be a city-owned piece of equipment, of course, like the others as well.
Any other questions for Bill or Lance? If not, do we have a motion to bring this to the council? Thank you, Justin.
I'll second.
Thank you, Scott. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Lance. And do we want to put that on consent agenda?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the eponymous IRP loan. Amy Baldwin.
Good morning, Mayor, council members. The city has received a request for participation in the financing for the purchase of Chagan's Pub located in Henning, Minnesota, through our IRP program, which is the USDA Intermediary Relending Program. And when the city received those funds from the USDA, it was for a revolving loan fund to be available throughout Ottertail County. And so that is why we are talking about a loan that would be located with a business located in Henning. The loan itself, as was mentioned, is for Chagan's Pub, which is an established business there. New owners coming in, two partners in that loan, and they will be maintaining the existing staff and operations, but also making improvements and enhancing that service to the community. As expressed, this business is critical for Henning, being a smaller community, so having a full-service restaurant is a key part of that community. As anticipated, the loan would be a $50,000 city loan with a 10-year amortization schedule, a 5% interest rate, and then a 5-year balloon, because it is for the real estate and the business itself. So it is a more difficult to secure loan because it isn't purely real estate. So that's why we are looking at that shorter term and that balloon on that loan. The bank is the primary lender at 70% of the financing for that, and that is their loan limit for this type of loan, so that's why they were seeking other gap financing. The city would have a $50,000 loan, as mentioned, in a second position for the real estate and a UCC filing on equipment and other business assets. And then the third position would be the city of Henning. So they do have a small loan fund, but they couldn't go larger than the $25,000 based on their available dollars in their fund, and then the owners are putting in 10% as well. So a fairly typical structure. It's good that we're in the second position versus third, and the city of Henning is willing to do that because they feel the value of having this business remain in operation is very critical for them. The internal IRP loan committee here at the city has reviewed this proposal and feels comfortable in making this. They have a strong business plan on how they plan to take it from its current operations, which are strong, but even further improve that to have stronger financials. And as well, one of the partners will be maintaining their full-time job that they've had for some time. So they will have that continued income into the household in addition to the restaurant as they get up and running, because they do also plan to make some cosmetic and efficiency improvements within the restaurant outside of these funds. I mentioned our position on the real estate and the UCC filing. We also will get our typical origination fee on this to put back into the loan fund and to cover our expenses and review. Personal guarantees from the borrowers and key man life insurance assigned to the city should something happen, because they are both critical to the operation of the business. They have entered into the purchase agreement for the property and business and expect to close on these, the funding by late April, assuming approval through the various entities. Be happy to answer any questions on this request.
Thank you, Amy. Any questions for Amy? Just about how much is in that intermediary relending program?
We call it IRP, just
IRP.
because it's a lot easier, especially if it's early in the morning. We do just have this would be the third loan funded out of there. There's a small, about $13,000 loan that has a principal remaining, and then we did approve the larger $250,000 loan with the car wash, if you recall, back in December. So that's the largest piece, but we still have $500,000. 688. I was being conservative on the number. Thank you, Finance.
So
Yes,
just one other question. I assume that the Ottertail County does not have an economic development program at the time that would be able to house this. Is that why the city of Fergus Falls ended up with this
Correct.
countywide?
Yeah, so it's back in the 1990s, so
90s, right.
quite some time ago when this pool of funds was made available through the USDA. Perham does have their own pool of of IRP funds, and as well West Central Initiative does have an IRP funded loan program as well. This doesn't fit their program parameters, so they weren't an option for this particular loan.
Thank you, Amy. Any other questions for Amy? Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Tom. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. We okay to put that on the consent agenda?
Yes. Yep.
Thank you, Amy. Next item, we are not going to discuss item 7. We're going to.
I'll speak to it real
Yeah,
quick.
we can talk to that, Andrew.
Yeah, Your Honor, members of the council, we'll bring that back in about a month. We received some feedback late in the day yesterday from one of the committees, and just made me realize I'm going to do the circuit of boards and commissions one time. I've been to probably half of them since we've talked about this last, but I'm going to make an attempt to go to all of them, talk to them about this, extract feedback. We've been soliciting feedback for about 2 or 3 months now, and we've only heard from 2 or 3 people. So it'd be nice to hear some more feedback in the next month. Our timeline has been built as such that we have the flexibility to push this off a little bit. So we'll work on this over the next month. I'll attend all those meetings, and then we'll come back in a month to bring an update.
Thank you, Andrew. Next item on the agenda is workplace health and well-being policy. HR Director Mike Hartwell.
Good morning, Your Honor, and members of the council. For some time, the city has had a wellness program in place, and it has pretty robust participation amongst our employees. And most recently, we did a survey and found out that 70% of our employees felt that the wellness program did motivate them to improve their overall health and their physical abilities as far as getting out and walking and exercising and so forth. Through the process of looking further into how we fund this program, it was discovered that receiving money from any outside agency or group to help fund our wellness program needs to have approval from the city council and needs to have a written policy in place. So therefore, in front of you is a written wellness policy that, if you go to the monitoring and review section, speaks specifically to the city council approving wellness funding, which is currently provided by Lake Country Services Co-op on an annual basis. So the purpose of this policy today in front of you is to get approval of it and also to understand that the allocation of funding is going to come before you as a consent item on an annual basis for approval.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions?
So moved.
Oh, so moved. Thank you.
I'll make it.
That's a good question. Thanks, Jim. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Approved, same sign. Motion carries. Last item on the agenda is a Project Downtown Renaissance update. President of the Downtown Riverfront Council, Steve Erickson.
Morning. I guess it was about the middle of January when I presented this outline of things that we wanted to do to try to help stabilize downtown and deal with vacant buildings and storefronts and so forth. Since that time, we've done a number of things, and I wanted to address those with you. If you still have the outline, sort of disregard it. There were a number of key things that we were going to do. We identified that there were 4 primary objectives of our plan, but 9 things that we were going to do with that initially. Some of them we've had to postpone, others we've moved to the front, and so I'm going to go over that part of it. The first thing we did was we started talking with some existing businesses and with other people that had influence in downtown. And doing that, we identified a number of different problems. One of them, if you were at the meeting at the Senior Citizens Center last week, you would have heard about, which was the on-street parking issue. We heard about that from a number of different businesses, that it is difficult for them because people, either they are employees or they are residents from the apartments above, are parking in front of their businesses days on end. One operator told us that the car parked in front of their entrance had been there for 5 days. There was there was another vehicle that had been parked in 2 of their parking spaces behind their business. That had been there for 2 weeks. They ended up calling the police to get the issues resolved. We heard complaints from that particular business numerous times. I heard it from at least 4 different businesses. It tends to be the ones that are on the south side, closer to the east end of downtown. The others seem to have parking that is not quite as critical, but even the ones where the 2 big lots are, Union and Hart Street lots, I guess I'll refer to them as that, seem to have problems with people parking in front of their business. I counted on one day, one morning, 6 cars parked on Lincoln Avenue in 1 block section that had been there for several days. So anyway, that was one issue that was addressed by the businesses. That could be something that's addressed by the council. My thought on that was that just enforcing the parking regulations of 2 hours really isn't the total solution, because the people that are there, that do live there, are important to the city from a standpoint of property taxes and possibly sales tax too. So you don't want to irritate them so much by towing their cars. You want to be able to provide an alternative to them, give them some warning that, you know, here's where there's parking space for you, set aside, And then in a certain date, we're gonna enforce what our rules are. The other thing that it seemed to me about the parking issue was that you've got a 2-hour period. I'm not sure people need 2 hours to shop, to buy something. So you might look at some point of whether you wanted to adjust that. And then there are certain people, for example, at Pemberton, I was told that they get a parking pass from the city if they have somebody coming in for a deposition that might park there, and they're allowed to park for a longer period of time. So just kind of looking at that issue and actually moving forward with it would be great. Other people said they didn't know anything about the parking pass program, so I don't know what the city.
I think it's from the Chamber of Commerce. That's the one.
It's been years.
Okay, because I asked Pemberton for one at the front desk, and they gave me a one that said from the Chamber of Commerce. So I don't think that exists anymore.
Yeah, well, it might be something worthwhile on occasion to be able to have something like that. The other thing that I heard wasn't coming from the businesses, it was coming from other people. Well, why don't you go downtown at night? Why don't you go to a restaurant at night? Why don't you go down to the Center for the Arts at night and so forth? Because one of the biggest obstacle that we're facing is enough people downtown at night that are going to be customers of some of the other businesses. And these people aren't necessarily living in Fergus, and they're saying, I don't feel safe walking to the parking lots that are behind the businesses on the north side. They're not lit very well. I don't feel safe walking down the alley. And I heard it from more than one person, so you might look at that also. So when we started out our discussion, we found out that we had at least 5 businesses that were at risk of closing. For various different reasons. The parking issue wasn't the cause of saying we're going to close because we don't have parking. The issue was somebody didn't know how to market their business properly. I think other people probably don't have all of the business skills that they need. Somebody else maybe finds it difficult to get employees and so forth. There were but as I said, there were 3 of them that were imminent and 2 more that thought that they would give it another year or so and then they were going to close. So we started thinking about this as an education issue. How do we address this? How do we get more people downtown? How do we get a restaurant that closes at 5 o'clock in the afternoon or a business that closes at 4:30 in the afternoon to stay up or stay open longer so that they can benefit each other? Where we are on that now, I mean, as I said, I talked with one restaurant. I said, why are you closing at 4 o'clock in the afternoon? And they said, well, actually, we close at 3. You know, we're just sort of cleaning up around you. But we were open longer at one time. And, but there were no customers. Same thing, dark at night. I talked with another fellow that I thought was a good candidate who had a business, started a business, not yet moved out of his garage type of a location, but ready to shortly move on. And I said, I think you'd be great to go downtown. You know, you've got the city bakery property that's going to come on the market, and I see it is now. That would be a great location for you. And a couple days later, he called me up and he said, you know, Friday night we went out and we started out on the west side of town and started driving down Lincoln Avenue. We went past Socials and their parking lot was filled. We got down closer to Union Avenue, and as we looked, you know, we could see Union Pizza was open and we could see the spot was open, but we didn't see anybody walking around. And even though you've got streetlights and so forth, their impression was downtown was dead. There was nothing going on. He kept driving, got down to the VFW parking lot, was full, got to the Elks Club, parking is full. So, or to the show. So he said, I don't know that I would want to put my business down there and run that risk. So on the positive side, though, is we talked with 4 different people that said, you know, we think this is really great what's going on here. We're interested in potentially starting a business, and are sort of talking through this idea or that idea. None of those have come to fruition yet. At least one of them is a really good idea, and I think would be very fit in downtown. So we thought, how do we address this issue of needing to do something quickly to get people downtown? So we're looking at 2 things. One of which is we're going to start a marketing campaign that will be effective within 60 days. And that marketing campaign is going to be directed specifically to the restaurants, the downtown restaurants. There's either 12 or 13, I guess, depending on how you classify them. We do not consider fast food as a restaurant because usually the rules are set by the corporation that is the vendor. So anyway, this program is going to operate for about 3 months. It's going to be based on the theory that if you go to a different restaurant for a month, you get it stamped, you have to buy something, that you'll be eligible for a drawing to receive a gift. If you decide to do it the second month, same thing, you're eligible for a drawing for a gift. After the 3rd month, it's a large gift. And it might be a travel package, it might be a hotel package someplace, but something that, you know, is actually worthwhile. And we're still working out the details of that, so I don't want to talk about too many specifics, but I think it's something that's going to be well received. I've talked with several of the restaurants already. They're very eager about it. We've said that there are going to be some limitations to you. We're not going to charge you for this, but you're going to have to be open at night, at least 1 night a week, and we'll set what that time is. So that's going to start here within 60 days. The other thing that we've been doing is trying to figure out, going back to the issues of operations of a business, what are the problems? So we've met with M-State on that, and we've come down to a pilot program that we're going to do, and it's going to be, again, specifically addressed to the restaurants. And if this works, then we would use it on other types of businesses as well. And where we are right now with that is this is going to be a customized training program. For example, if Shoremaster wanted to do ongoing training for welders or whatever, or for new employees, or for somebody stepping up, they would use a customized training program specific to their company. And then again, use M-State with their people to bring in and do the training. The difference with this, it's the same theory, but it's to an industry, it's not to a specific business. So the program is going to be, start out with an assessment. We'll have the restaurants, but in this case, we'll expand beyond downtown. We don't think it's right that we wouldn't include people like Mabel Murphy's and so forth into it. So they'll be invited to participate in a discussion. M-State will assess what they describe as their issues with operation or questions they might have. The M-State will then analyze that information and develop an education program to fit that. It might be, how do you manage your employees? How do you do, how do you train your wait staff or whatever? But in any event, that pilot program we expect to have operational within 120 days. The other thing that we're doing is, this goes beyond M-State. We're looking at creation of an education center that would be downtown. And you notice that M-State has all sorts of programs, but they don't have any night school. We want to develop a program that's going to bring in a variety of different educational sources into downtown that could be utilized. For example, my background was a realtor. We are required to have continuing education. There isn't any continuing education here, or very little of it. So if you created some location where you could do an education center, you're doing continuing education for real estate, you're doing continuing education for legal services, whether it is, I'm not sure what you call hairdresser, cosmetology, get it? Cosmetologists, it seems like everybody has it. And if you can set it up so you can do it downtown and you're attracting people from other communities beyond Fergus, you're gonna get more people downtown, hopefully at the time that the restaurants have now been convinced that being open later will work for them. More people downtown, more activity, more success with the businesses. We're still working on SCORE. They've told us they want to do this. They are trying to set up their training program. We expect that to be downtown, then we'll get the mentors to fill in with that. There's only so much book learning people can get. I think all of you know that. And after a while, it becomes experience. So the SCORE program is to help businesses that have started up, that might have, or are about to start up, that might have a question about how do you do this or how do you do that. And the guy that's been welding for 45 years, for example, can say, well, that's great to learn that, but here's a technique I found. So that is ongoing as well. The other thing that I think is interesting, I'm not going through everything I have here, but the other thing I think that's interesting was Bemidji was in this basically probably a worse situation than Fergus, the downtown part of Fergus is today, as far as the business climate. And they were able to come together and figure out how to deal with the issue. They created an innovation center that's called the Launchpad, and that was done with, I believe the fellow had been the economic development director at the city, and then he headed up a 501c3 that actually came up with a plan of how it was going to work, got everybody going in the same direction. They created this innovation center and got it done, and Bemidji is now considered a very phenomenal community. One of the other things that's also interesting about it was when we talked about the dairy site and we talked about comparable land sales, one of the pieces of property that they bought was a comparable used in our analysis, which was this industrial strip along the lake that helped benefit the downtown. We are going to do a mayor-to-mayor event on May 1st, open board meeting like we have on the other ones, and I think everybody really should come and listen to this because the mayor from Bemidji and the economic development person that now heads Greater Bemidji, which was the 501c3 that accomplished the revitalization, are coming here. They're going to have a panel discussion, and they're going to say, this is what we did, how we did it, and if you're interested in questions, you can ask them and they'll answer it. So that's basically going to be between 4 and 6 p.m., May 1st, which is a Tuesday, I think. And we're going to do it at Bella Cucina's. We've got enough room for 120 people, I think, and I expect we'll be able to fill that. We're going to Bemidji to meet with them on Monday. Some people from the FFDRC are going there on Monday, take a tour of the facility. I know Andrew's been there, and I think, Ben, you've been there.
Amy as well. Yeah. Amy and Andrew and I went.
Yeah, okay, so the three of you went. In any event, they're gonna come here, and we're gonna go take a look at it to see how it looks and fits within our vision of a potential education center downtown. Everything that we're looking at is driving it, getting more people downtown, and getting them downtown, particularly in the evening. So the other things that we are doing are events. So we've got, we will have some involvement to benefit downtown with the Summerfest. They've agreed to bring and end the parade downtown, and that was very enthusiastically supported by a number of the downtown businesses. But our involvement there is pretty limited. Our real involvement is in Shop, Move, and Groove, and it's the same thing. We want to do an all-day deal, starts at 11, goes to 7 p.m. Businesses will be open, there'll be entertainment, so forth. So we do have a request from the council. This is the only monetary request, and that is the budget for that. In the past, I think this is the third year. Lisa, you here? Yeah. Maybe you want to talk about this for a minute, what your agenda is and so forth. But one of the charges that they've had the last 2 years is paying for city things, which are the street closures and so forth. That's 25% of the budget. We would like to see that waived. The object is to bring people downtown, and it's hard when you have to raise money to do all of this. So we'd like to see that city fees, those city fees waived, and I think Andrew, you maybe have a comment on that. If there's any questions on shop moving group, maybe you could just talk for 1 minute.
Maybe Andrew can just
Right.
give us an update on where we can waive fees and where we can't legally.
Yeah, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but state statute allows us to waive fees for community-wide celebration type events. And in discussions with City Attorney Nick Lamo, him and I have determined that Summerfest and Shop Move and Groove are probably the only 2 events that are held within the city that would qualify for that status. And we have no issue working with the organizers of Shop Move and Groove to waive those fees and to ensure that the event takes place.
And I would just add, I would want the council to specifically state that the council feels this is, really a city event as well, and we are participating in this community-wide event, so celebration, like Andrew said. So, but I'd like you to specifically state that as a council.
Yeah, and that for audit purposes.
Yep.
So I dragged Lisa down here, maybe we don't have enough time, I know that you want to be done here shortly. I do have one last thing, the other event that we're doing, which is, we thought that the Christmas tree lighting last year was really beneficial. We had a huge crowd downtown. And I'm sorry it wasn't directly after Thanksgiving, but it's close. And we're doing that again this year. Our planning for it is going on now. And our goal is to have 5,000 people downtown. Again, it's going to be an all-day event scheduled for December 1st, Saturday. And the reason that date is picked out is because that's the same day as Art Crawl. We want to do both of these things at the same time to generate more enthusiasm. If anybody wants to be involved in the planning of this, there's plenty of room. I don't have anything else. Are there any questions?
No, so are we going to have a formal request on Monday night to waive those, to look at?
We'll
waiving
put it on the consent agenda acknowledging that it's a citywide event and just have that as a resolution.
So as long as we're talking about citywide events, even though, we haven't done the discussion of what the holiday lighting event is going to be, I hope that you will think about this as another potential community event, that if there's need for any kind of street closures and stuff, that you'll consider that. Any questions?
Certainly, I think we can do that. Yes, Bill?
Yeah, I know last year, you, the mayor, kind of organized that, and that certainly was a city event, so.
So if there were any costs, we could consider those at that
I
point.
would guess so,
Yeah.
wouldn't you think?
Yes.
But we'll, as we get closer, we'll know exactly what is being done, so.
Do we need anything to go on Monday night?
Well, the only thing I'd,
Justin, do you have a question?
the only thing I'd add, sorry, Your Honor, is to Bill's point, I think if we have it on the consent, would we have you wanted the council to vote on that language? If we have it on the consent, is that fine?
Resolution, it can still be on consent.
Okay.
If you as a council feel, yes, that's a community event that that the city is participating in, then that's fine.
Okay.
So let's get a motion to direct that for the council on Monday night. So is there a motion?
Offer that, Your Honor.
I'll
Justin,
second it.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. All in favor of the motion? The motion?
Oh, we don't five. Put it on the agenda.
Okay.
You can do that.
All right, we'll put that on the agenda for Monday night. Yeah, we lost our quorum somewhere in the last bit of time. All right. So, anything else, Steve?
Like to
Lisa?
have a question of Lisa, or if you got any questions about what we're doing, or comments, or suggestions, I have nothing else.
All right, thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Anything else to come before this committee? If not, we're adjourned.